Oh boy, after that fun religious commentary last time, we're moving on to something different, the final stages of the Russian Civil War. I also want to give a big thanks because I actually got a real live human watching me last time, and if you're watching this, I want to give you a big thanks. So the Russian Civil War is basically what it sounds like. It was a Russian Civil War. Now, for all intents and purposes, it happened between 1917 to 1922, from the death of the Tsar to the real rise of the Soviet Union. However, for our purposes, we're not going to be using those dates. Instead, we're going to be using the extended dates from 1917 all the way into the 1930s. So basically what happened was the Tsar himself was the leader of the Russian Empire. However, because he had such power and World War I just happened, that didn't work out, if you get what I'm going for there. Now, after the communists took over much of the western half of Russia, they pushed the remaining bastions of the Russian Empire back further and further into the farthest, most desolate reaches of Siberia, often with little there except just blizzards and not much else. This is the former Russian Empire on a map right before the revolution. Because World War I had just ended, communist ideals spread through Moscow like wildfire, and by late 1917, the communists had exerted forceful uprisings. By 1919, the communists had swept a great chunk of Russia. In 1920, they took over most of the empire. And unfortunately, in 1921, they basically had nearly all of the former Russian Empire and only left the tiniest pockets of the White Army, the original army who was anti-Bolshevik, in isolated Siberian pockets. Everyone thought the Russian Empire was gonzo. However, despite being in the worst possible areas, they'd hold on for many more years to come. One such uprising was the Yakut Revolt, named after the native Yakut people. With the White Army and the native groups helping one another fight the Bolsheviks, they managed to liberate quite the chunk of land in the Far East. They did this by destroying the Bolshevik stronghold in the city of Yakutsk and shooing away the Red Army in the area. In 1921, the Soviet government sent in Red Army troops into the new Yakut territory to reclaim the city of Yakutsk, and ultimately, after their untimely victory, they reintegrated the land back into the new Soviet Union. So after we just covered that, I'm going to give some context from now on. So 1922 is usually the year used to mark the end of the Russian Civil War and the formation of the Soviet Union. However, because a lot of the kind of weirder, more small-scale rebellions happened after 1922, that's where we're going with now. So just keep in mind that from now on, all of these are technically under the new Soviet Union and not the Russian Empire, and they're just some rebel groups. And also, if you want to read the rest of this, just pause. It's 1924. The remaining White Army was limited to a tiny, frozen, bleak hellhole in northern Siberia, a patch of land nobody thought about ever. Like, come on, Bolsheviks, I don't think they're gonna be a threat to you up there. When people thought that all hope was lost, who else steps up but the Tungus? Now, by the way, they're called the Evenki. So, they're a group of natives that live on the far northeast and helped liberate a swath of land along the east coast. While they probably were going to help the White Army, the Soviets came in and unfortunately took over the White Army bastion. Yep, that's right, the White Army finally fell after all those years. Now it was up to the Tungus. With their apparently good military skills, they were able to take over a bigger region up north along the Arctic Ocean. The Tungus Republic was born. They managed to cling on for a surprising amount of time against the Soviets, but around a year later, a peace treaty was signed by them that allowed for their semi-autonomy within the Soviet Union, but it took their lands. 1925 marked their end. The Bukharan Revolution took place in the Emirate of Bukhara, which is here. A radical group within it called the Young Bukharans wanted change, something that the emir of it promised. Many talks were discussed between the Emirate radicals and the Bolsheviks up north, but in the end, agreements weren't delivered on and failed. The Soviets began their march into the emirate, where local surrounding groups supplied the emirate with weapons, which were used against the radical progressives and communists. However, the attacks by Soviets on emirate cities were too great, and the emirate fell. Now, because it fell to the USSR, the revolution lasted pretty decently long, actually, from 1917 to 1926, which lasted nearly all of the whole Civil War and beyond. A few emirate groups didn't surrender and had to be weeded out by the Soviets even into the early 1930s. Well, that's all for this time, friends. As the thing says here, I want to do more, but a lot of the people that are involved with these, like revolutions and rebellions and whatnot, don't have a lot of info. Especially in the southern parts of the Soviet Union, around the Middle East, and places like Turkmenistan and Iran and those types of areas. They have a lot of things going on and a lot of smaller rebellions, but unfortunately there aren't a whole lot of details about it. Well, take care.